Morning, everybody. So, my name is Jess, and I am a founder of A Mindful Message. We are a multilingual mental health service. And today I have the special Raffaele, our bilingual counsellor, who speaks the beautiful language of Italian. So, Raffaele, would you like to introduce yourself, who you are, and what you do?
Okay, good morning, everyone. Mm, I'm, um, I'm introducing myself in English, and then bit by bit I move on into Italian. So my name is Raffaele. I am an integrative counselor, professional musician, teacher, and a human being, basically. And so I moved to England in 2008 to follow my dream, which was to become a professional musician. Because at that time I wasn't so aware about this second nature of myself, which is, a good listener, which became then my core condition to become a counselor. Um, I moved to England, going to live for 8 years in Brighton, which was a great experience, especially for musicians, artists, because Brighton, as you might know, is, I consider, a bubble within a country, and nothing to do with the country itself in this case, because Brighton is very unique.
Mm-hmm.
So I moved there, and obviously was challenging for me as musician, because I had to deal with high level of musicianship around, but that became the best great um, training, if you like, experience, life experience, and musically speaking and humanly speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding obviously, as Italian, coming from a country like Italy, who is well known like the beautiful country, sunny country, good food, people who are so lovely, whatever. And I didn't realize as soon as I moved to Brighton how many prejudices, how many assumptions I was carrying on within myself, culturally speaking, because I was coming from a different culture than England. So Brighton was the best place to face and to smash my prejudices and whatever, because as you might know, in Brighton there is a huge gay community, which makes Brighton as well great, because they look after their place, they are very bohemian, they look after art, they look after creativity, much more than other places in my personal experience I had in England. But meanwhile, coming from a country, a Catholic country like Italy, where gay people, unfortunately, are still considered not normal. I'm sorry to say that, but this is the reality. Even now, a couple gay can't. They have to be very careful to walk on the street in cities and not little villages like Milan or Rome, hanging hand by hand, because they might be kicked by bloody idiot gang of these ignorant people, because this kind of prejudice is based on ignorance. That's all. So to me, going to Brighton and not being so comfortable with my English put me in the position to be much more, well, most of the time in silence, and observing, looking around. And then, as soon as my prejudices were coming up,
Mm-hmm.
but because I wasn't able to share these prejudices, and these prejudices were still within me, I had to face them, and I had to start to use this Socratic method, which was, self-challenging my prejudices and asking myself, hold on a minute, what evidence do you have to prove that what you're thinking is true?
Yeah.
And also because I've been always intrigued by philosophy as attitude, not as a knowledge. And philosophy itself, the literally translation is love for to know, love for knowing. That's why philosophy is very challenging, because you challenge constantly. So that attitude of me, you know, helped me so much to face how much prejudices, ideas, assumption I was carrying on.
Thank you for that. So, as you mentioned, one, that's a powerful story to kind of build on from when you were saying you Socratic questioning for your own prejudices, and you've kind of had your own cultural shock moving from Italy to the UK. How would you say that helps you within practice? Like, what are your strengths? Is that what you kind of niche into as an integrated counsellor? Do you use a lot of Socratic questioning? Do you challenge those people's prejudices because you've been through that yourself? Or would you say that you focus a little more on something different?
Okay, maybe shall I move to Italian?
You can do if you'd like to.
Ok, bene. Beh, come mi ha aiutato? Mi ha aiutato molto, perché sfidare i miei pregiudizi, le mie assunzioni basate su personali opinioni, mi ha aiutato davvero a vedere il grande impatto che c'è quando una persona va a vivere in un altro paese, in un paese straniero, perché inevitabilmente hai a che fare con differenze culturali, con differenze di pensiero, con differenze di vestiario, con differenze di tanti tipi di differenze. Per quanto mi riguarda, l'approccio, il dialogo socratico è sempre stato una mia caratteristica, perché nella mia vita, prima di arrivare a vivere in Inghilterra, ho avuto la fortuna di conoscere persone, di avere relazioni con persone che mi hanno aiutato molto nell'imparare a mettermi in discussione, a mettere sempre in discussione le mie idee, le mie convinzioni, le mie credenze. Quando sono arrivato in Inghilterra, questo è stato per me uno shock, perché non ero consapevole di quanto ancora avessi dentro di me questi pregiudizi, queste assunzioni, queste credenze. E quindi essere da solo in un paese straniero, con poca dimestichezza con la lingua, mi ha messo spalle al muro, ha messo spalle al muro tutti i miei pregiudizi, perché non potevo più nascondermi dietro il dito e dire io sono così.
Okay.
E quindi insomma ho dovuto mettere in campo queste competenze. Diventando counselor integrativo, sì, io ho un atteggiamento molto sfidante con i miei clienti, perché io sono sempre stato convinto che la soluzione dei nostri problemi è già dentro di noi. Il solo fatto di vedere un problema già ci mette nella condizione di riconoscere un problema che magari altre persone non riconoscono, non vedono come un problema. Quindi se io vedo quella situazione come un problema, evidentemente c'è già anche la soluzione dentro di me. E quindi è una questione di come mi sto raccontando io questo problema, è una questione di narrativa, come me la sto raccontando io sta roba. E io con i miei clienti sono molto, come dire, sfidante. Sfido sempre sul piano del rispetto, eccetera, però sempre dicendo quali prove hai di credere che quello che stai dicendo sia la verità. Hai provato a pensare che potrebbe essere diverso? Quali prove passate hai avuto che confermino quello che stai dicendo adesso? Eccetera, eccetera. So, going back to summarize in English, little one, yes, the Socratic method I've been applying is something I've learned many years ago without knowing it, because I had the lucky to meet in my life in Italy. I had the lucky to meet people who taught me without being aware of, to challenge constantly. What evidence do you have? Why you think like that? Is it your thinking? Is your thought, or is it something you learned? Or is it something? Is it copy strategy? Is it copy mechanism? Whatever. Let's explore together, because very often the issue we are dealing with are based on the way we are, uh, our own narrative, very often. And very often we don't realize that the solution of that issue is already within ourselves. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to recognize that as an issue. And to have someone like me, I am very strict. I'm very, but as I always say to my clients, sorry, my introduction is I'm Italian. So if sometimes the way I say something sounds a bit straightforward, out of a bit challenging, or maybe too much strong, please forgive me. But do not forget that I come from a different culture, and in Italy, for instance, we have this way to express our passion in a way we deliver whatever we say. I always say, I always make this example. In Japan, for instance, when they say rigato, which means thank you, sounds like, before I didn't know the meaning, sounds like they were going to kill each other. For instance, and I had a lovely experience with one girlfriend English I took in South Italy to my family. And my family, they were at some point, they were shouting, screaming to each other. Obviously, the level of wine on the table wasn't less. But anyhow, my mom was shouting towards my dad. My dad was shouting whatever, and I was smoothly keep going eating my food. My girlfriend, who wasn't aware about what they were talking about, she was panicking. And she looked at me and she said, "Are we safe?" I said, "No, don't worry. They are just talking about peaches." Because my mom was telling off my dad because the peaches we were eating weren't from the same vegetable shop. And they were shouting. They looked like And I said, "No, don't worry." And my girlfriend, when I said, "What? They are talking about peaches." Yeah, just don't worry about it. Yeah, keep going. They're talking about peaches. Yeah, but it looks like they are going to kill each other. Yeah, that's us.
Bene, that's the Italian way.
Yes, and that's why sometimes I have to be careful with clients. I have to say that because, especially with English, because they come from a different culture. And, in England, for instance, as Italian, I faced straightforward this massive, huge cultural thing, which is politeness. English are very polite. Italian, we are polite, but in our own way. Even when
I
we
think
insult each other.
you've definitely touched on the point of like cultural barriers that
Yes.
you may face like personally and professionally, because when you have clients, for example, and the way you even said, it could just be your mannerism, it could just be your tone, and obviously being in a counseling room, it's a safe environment, it's that non-judgmental place, but it's also establishing that I'm also human, these are my characteristics, I mean no harm, I want to provide that space for you. However, this is my culture, and I'm hoping that, you don't take it so abruptly. And I love that. And I just wanted to ask you, just touching on that a little bit, because you've expanded. If, for example, a person from Italy, or even wherever they may be from the world, if they're facing some cultural and, language barriers to access mental health, what advice would you give them in Italian or English? And English.
Ok, in italiano first direi di essere pazienti, compassionevoli verso se stessi, gentili, accoglienti, pazienti. So, perché questa è la mia esperienza. So, I'd say as tip, to be self-compassion, to be kind towards themselves, to be patient, and not to get the difficulties, the issues they are dealing with as another opportunity to torture themselves and to feel inadequate, to feel, but I'd say to be more awake about reality, the reality you are living within. Because, let's not forget that our consciousness is not inside of us. We used to think in that way. But our consciousness is our opening to the world, because we are in this world. We are dealing with these realities. So if I'm having some issue, cultural barrier, language, whatever, in my personal experience, what helped me was starting to be more kind to myself and not keep going, wow, what's wrong with me? I'm not good enough, what I've done, and blah, 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 which is not, it doesn't help. It doesn't help. And I've been told many times before to become a counselor from, by friends, girlfriends, people I met in my life, even musicians I played with, this sentence, man, be kind to yourself. And I didn't realize what exactly they meant. But now I know exactly what they meant, because I can see in my personal experience how much learning to be kind to myself has helped me to accept that there are sometimes languages barriers, there are sometimes cultural barriers, but these languages barriers and cultural barriers don't define who we are, unless we put our belief that, oh, here I am, I'm inadequate, so I'm a shit guy. I'm not good. I'm blah, blah. No, I'm not. I'm dealing with something that is different. So let's externalize the issue here, first of all. Let's not identify yourself to the issue, because that issue doesn't define you, who you are, or your problem, whatever. You are experiencing some issue, you are experiencing some difficulty. Welcome to the club, my dear, because this club is called human being, and we all deal with some issues sometimes. Obviously, going abroad, living, building up your life for different reasons, whatever, obviously that will be more challenging. But the funny thing is that the more challenging is going to be, and the more rewarding it will be at the end.
100%.
And that is my personal experience. Now, if I think by myself, if I look myself backward, bloody hell, I couldn't even imagine to become a counselor. And England gave me this opportunity. When I moved to Brighton, my English was very basic. Good morning, my name is, that's it. And luckily, because music has its own language, I was able in 1 month in Brighton to play regularly in Soho, in London, with my field of law, with full of equipment, musicians from Brighton who were talking to me in English. I couldn't understand a bloody word, anything. And I was driving, Trafalgar Square with my navigator voice, Italian, because that made me feel, okay, I feel, I still have some root there.
Yeah.
But, and then, playing with these big people, double bass drum, and then realizing, what, doesn't matter, I'm here, let's make the most of it, let's do the most of it. And the joy after, and now after 15 years being, who I am, and being able to say, not to feel scared, took me 3 years in Brighton to be able to walk around on my own without feeling panicking if someone was stopping me, asking for direction, instruction, or whatever.
So the anxiety kind of, like, there was an anxious feeling there because it's about communicating, and
Absolutely.
That's what a mindful message is about. We're trying to overcome those anxieties, because if it's a talking therapy, and you're unable to talk, it kind of defeats the object. Raffaele, my last question for you is, why have you decided to join a mindful message?
Right, Italian first. Beh, ho deciso di partecipare a questo platform perché questa platform offre un servizio a persone come me, stranieri, che vivono in paesi stranieri, diversi dalla loro lingua, diversi dalla loro cultura, e perché la mia esperienza è stata esattamente così. Ricordatevi, tenete presente che io mi sono trasferito in Inghilterra quando ho compiuto 40 anni, quindi è stato molto difficile per me all'inizio, e soprattutto è stato molto difficile stare alla larga da altri italiani, perché sapevo che dovevo imparare la lingua, volevo entrare nella cultura del posto. Quindi mi ha molto attratto mindful message, perché ha a che fare con terapeuti bilingual che parlano più lingue e che possono dare un supporto, possono davvero aiutare persone straniere come me nel non sentirsi soli e nel sapere che è ok, it's okay. Right, in English, why I joined Mindful Message? That was the question. As I said, the main reason was because this platform offers this opportunity to, foreigners who lives in abroad countries, and they have similar experiences like mine. So I know by personal experience how much difficult can be. And the funny thing is that I used the first year, the second year, I never went to therapy, but I was dealing with some issues within myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to therapy. And guess what? I was looking for an Italian therapist because I was, even if my English was a bit better at that time, but I was saying to myself, how can I express whatever I'm saying, whatever I'm feeling in a language which doesn't feel mine yet? First, how can I be myself if I have to think how to translate the bloody thing I want to share with my therapist? And that's why. So the funny thing is that I met this lady who was half Italian, half English, but probably, she was living in England for so many years, so she wasn't used to anymore to this passion, because that in these 2-3 sessions I had with her, she didn't expect, even if I warned her, she didn't expect to meet my inner Mr. Hyde, which was very bloody hungry. And even if I warned them, I said, look, don't get scared, but I've got my friend within myself who wants to say something. And he said, yeah, go for it, no problem. And then, well, she got scared and she stopped seeing me, apologizing, because she said, sorry, I can't deal with that. It's too much for me. I'm not used to. I said, fine, okay, I warn you. But it was my personal experience.
Yeah.
And that was, I chose this platform exactly for that reason, because I know what it's like.
Yeah.
I know what it's like feeling alone. I know what it's like feeling you are on your own. You don't know, you don't have anyone to share what's going on with yourself. I know what it's feeling when you feel totally on your own. You feel that kind of existential loneliness.
Mm-hmm.
And you're scared. You feel scared. You feel, you feel, gosh, am I capable to carry on? What's going on? Why? Blah blah blah. You started to self-question yourself, self-question even the good things you are at.
I get that. Raffaele, all I'm going to say is your journey and what you do and why you do it is very powerful, and I'm hoping that you continue to heal others around you. And I want to thank you so much for spending some time with me today.
Absolutely my pleasure, Jess. Thank you.
I will put all Raffaele's contact details in the description, and if you ever want to get in touch, we are here and we are here to support you.
Thank you for listening, and grazie per avermi ascoltato.
Bene.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Ciao cara, ciao a tutti.